This video is called Solving Equations Having Like Terms in Parentheses. Notice I have two of the same equation on both sides of the line. I'm going to show you two different ways that you could solve this one. For this side, I'm going to use the left distributive principle of multiplication across addition. So I'm going to take this negative 5 and I'm going to distribute it across the addition sign because it's in parentheses. So negative 5 times 2w, I'm going to multiply negative 5 and 2, which gives me negative 10w, plus negative 5 times 1 gives me negative 5, equals 25. Now if you remember from the last video, we need to undo in the opposite order that we do. So we're going to undo addition first. So I need to subtract a negative 5 from both sides. Well, subtracting a negative 5 is really adding a positive 5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides of my equal sign. And I get negative 10w equals 30. Now I have to undo multiplication. I'm going to do that with division. Because it's a negative 10, I need to undo negative 10. These cancel out, and I get w equals negative 3. Now on this side, I'm going to use a different principle. I'm going to look at the fact that I have negative 5 times 2w plus 1 equals 25. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm taking this and multiplying it by negative 5. So to undo that would be to divide this by negative 5. Now I can do that because this is in the grouping symbols. So I'm left on this side with these canceling out, and I get 2w plus 1 equals 5 goes into, or negative 5 goes into 25 negative 5 times. Now I'm going to undo adding 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. Well, if I add the opposite, I get 2w equals negative 6. I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get w equals negative 3. Notice I got the same solution on both sides. Let's look at another example. Now there's a couple of really important steps to remember when you're solving expressions or equations. First, refuse to subtract. Then simplify each side. So I'm going to start by refusing to subtract. So I'm going to add the opposite. Now notice it's the opposite of what's inside the parenthesis. So I have to distribute that across my parentheses. So I have negative 40 plus the opposite of 2x is negative 2x plus the opposite of 5 is negative 5 equals negative 61. So I started by refusing to subtract. Now I need to simplify each side. Well, this side is simplified, but this side has a set of like terms. Now I can't add these to 2x because they're not like terms, but I can add negative 40 and negative 5. So I end up with negative 45 plus negative 2x equals negative 61. Remember, we undo addition first, not multiplication, so I need to get rid of this negative 45. The opposite of adding negative 45 is subtracting negative 45 or adding positive 45. So I'm going to do that to both sides of my equation. I get negative 2x plus, because I have one positive and one negative, I'm going to subtract, which gives me 16. The absolute value of 61 is larger, so it's 2x equals negative 16. Now I want to undo multiplication, so I'm going to divide both sides by a -2, and I get x equals 8. So notice in this example, I started by refusing to subtract, I simplified each side, and then I used my transformation principles. And I used here the transformation principle of addition for equality, and here I used the transformation principle of division for equality. But I didn't use these two until I had refused to subtract, or DPS'd, and simplified each side. Here's one more example. I have 42 equals 18t plus 4 times, in parentheses, t plus 5. Now you'll notice here I have the distributive principle. I'm going to have to deal with that before I can simplify this side of my equation. So I'm going to distribute my 4 across the parentheses. So I have 42 equals 18t plus 4 times t is 4t plus 4 times 5 is 20. Now I can simplify this side of my equation, and I have some like terms here. So I get 42 equals 22t plus 20. Now I want to get rid of my addition first, so I'm going to subtract both sides by 20. This is the transformation principle of subtraction for equality. For here I get 22 equals 22t. I'm going to divide both sides by 22. That's the transformation principle of division for equality. And I get 1 equals t, because this cancels out. So my answer is t equals 1. And this is the end of the video on solving equations having like terms in parentheses. Now it's your turn, and you need to solve these two equations.